welcome to Business Talk. And we live in an age of anxiety, certainly judging by my 9-year-old, and it's only amplified by the recent pandemic. We had the ensuing inflation. We've got the war in the Ukraine and Middle East. Hell, World War III was trending on Twitter recently, and we've got the ongoing climate crisis. So it's a little surprising that the role of brands has changed significantly in recent years. I was reading the Edelman Trust Barometer, which is a global survey of 32,000 consumers in 28 countries, and trust and values have become essential components of success for brands. Now, one brand that has really taken this to heart is Heineken, and after its recent acquisition of Distell, is equally heavily invested in South Africa, despite having to impair those assets recently. I'm joined now by Millicent Maroga, who's a Corporate Affairs Director for HEINEKEN Beverages. Millicent, welcome to Business Talk.
Thank you, Michael, for having me, and a warm welcome to your listeners.
Now, I say you've taken this to heart, and it's not just because you sponsor my favorite football competition in the UEFA Champions League, but you really have strategically put this at the center of what you do. How is Heineken brewing a better world, as it's called? And is it reaching its sustainability targets locally and globally?
So Heineken, we are brewing a better world from hop to bottle. So essentially from our agricultural value chain and all the way to the products that you will find in store. We endeavor to do that through strategic partnerships, but also through innovations within our business. And one of those innovations, it is, of course, the topic that you and I are going to be discussing today, which is the Heineken Star Bottle. With regards to are we meeting our sustainability targets, is a journey. We would like to think of it as planting a tree, where it is a slow process, but we are seeing some good return on our investment, but also good in society. The areas where we're particularly doing well, and the areas where we still have a lot of work to do.
I think for so many corporates, it's about being honest about this and saying, and it's refreshing to hear that honesty, to say, no, we're certainly not there yet. It's something we're starting to really incorporate, rather than some of the greenwashing that we have seen around the place. Now, I don't think many people realize how climate change is going to impact our favorite beer, because a warmer and drier climate is expected to lower the yield of hops by up to 18% by 2050 over in Europe. So it's a very real and tangible kind of threat. What are some of Heineken's global sustainability targets? Because it's beyond just talking about climate change. It's about pollution. It's about recycling. What are some of the group's global sustainability targets?
So just to call out 3 specifically, one is around water, making sure that we reduce the amount of water we use in our brewing processes. Our ambition is actually to reduce that to 2.9 liters. In the South African context, you can understand the need for us to actually do more, given that we are now beginning to experience some crises and shortages with the water supply. And so that is something that we take very seriously. And so part of the initiatives that we have in our business, particularly in South Africa, it is repurposing our water from the brewery or from the brewing process, which then we use for other purposes within the brewery. We have our own water treatment plant, but also working with a network of other business partners to then unlock the challenges we have in terms of water supply and supporting local municipalities and government to then solve some of the water infrastructure in the country. So water is one element. Then the second one, of course, it is carbon, reducing the amount of carbon emission in both the production processes, but also in our distribution processes as well as agricultural processes. In the South African context, the carbon issue, of course, it is compounded by a crisis, energy crisis, where in certain instances we actually have to rely on diesel to then keep up the brewery. So it's about how do you offset the impact of us having to use diesel in our brewing processes because of load shedding, but also finding ways to actually introduce much more cleaner energy options or mix in our overall energy mix. And so in addition to a solar plant that we have in City being a 6.5 megawatt, 14,000 panel solar plant, we are now looking at introducing biogas and expanding and looking at other sources of renewable energy. Then the third one, it is about sustainable packaging. For us as Heineken, we endeavor to reduce the amount of non-recyclable packaging material across our SKUs. We've started that process with Heineken, our flagship brand. Last year, we moved from shrink packaging to carton packaging or box packaging. And of course, recently we've launched a returnable bottle in our backpack, which we call the Star Bottle. And we're very excited that we are now more than 50% of our beer portfolio is actually in returnable bottles.
That's very interesting. There's so much to unpack in that. Just on a personal note, we feel the water infrastructure collapse in our community where we've been without water for a week in the last month. And, it affects us personally, it affects business, but it also makes us really think about being a water-stressed country. And I know barley, which gives beer its color and flavor, needs about 30 centimeters of water to grow. So, these are very existential issues. But the packaging really interests me because I was hosting a sustainability event for Safripol. They're a big polymer manufacturer. And they're high up in the value chain. They produce little plastic pellets that are then turned into some plastic bottles or wrap, shrink wrap packaging and that kind of thing. And they say that the challenge has been getting the brand owners buy-in on this. And it's so encouraging to hear a brand owner like Heineken saying, right, we're going to be proactive here. And you recently announced some very interesting projects. What does Heineken hope to achieve through the Fil Green with grass, not glass? What is it that you're actually launching here?
Yeah, so the Fil Green, filled with green, not glass. Sorry, I might be getting my sentencing wrong there. It is really an initiative that brings together our ambition as Heineken to contribute to a clean environment by addressing issues in our communities of bottle littering. And so through this initiative, we aim to educate members of the community by upgrading a public or public spaces in select communities and making those spaces greener zones for the enjoyment of the community, for the enjoyment of all members of the community, firstly by removing any bottles that may be in that space and making those spaces of enjoyment, but also keeping them safer. So it's really looking at using the power of our brand, which is Heineken, to then say, how do we then become a catalyst to create awareness around recycling, create awareness around keeping our environment clean. But as Heineken is becoming, we're moving to a returnable bottle, just kind of really use the power of this brand to drive awareness of community members to say, we all deserve cleaner spaces, and these green zones are a journey towards those cleaner spaces in our communities.
Yeah, and I often drive through some of our communities and think, when you see soccer pitches that are just dusty patches, imagine if we could just green those areas and what that would do for such a community from a socioeconomic perspective. Like, talk to me about these returnable bottles. Aren't bottles returnable anyway? What makes this particular project so unique?
So what makes this project very exciting, it is for Heineken globally. This is the world first returnable bottle in the backpack, which in the South African languages we'll call ingodu, but this is a 650 ml, so the big bottle. Heineken Beverages, we've embarked on this journey a few years ago, and we're very proud that we're at this point. You have this beautiful bottle that is now returnable. Our backpack was not a returnable. So now moving from a non-returnable bottle in backpack to a returnable bottle, it significantly moves a bulk of our beer portfolio into returnable. The benefit of a returnable bottle, as you may know, it is that for the environment, we can reuse that bottle, meaning the bottle can come back into the brewery a couple of times before the bottle can then be recycled. But also for the waste pickers as well. This is now a revenue for them because they can bring the bottle, including you as a consumer, the outlet owner, to then return the bottle for a deposit. So it's an ecosystem that has an economic benefit for the people who are in the informal waste economy, for outlet owners, but also for consumers, and more importantly for the environment. And hence the connect back to the fields of green, where the fields of grass, where the intention is we actually want to make sure that we have less bottles that are polluting the environment and those bottles coming back into the circulation.
Absolutely, grass, not glass. Absolutely, yeah. And if you look at it, we've also had this big push in South Africa via extended producer responsibility, and really exciting to see the kind of circular economic thinking here. So it's not just about the environmental gains; it's about the job creation for the waste pickers, the wastepreneurs, if you want to call them that, and they play a vital role in that value chain. Do you see Heineken rolling out these returnable bulk bottles elsewhere in the world?
Well, certainly. I mean, firstly, as South Africa, we are very proud that we are the first market for Heineken to embark on this journey, but also then we become a learning platform for the rest of the Heineken companies all over the world. As ambition, as globally as Heineken ambition, of course, it is to contribute and to reduce our carbon emissions. So we certainly do see more and more opcos learning from South Africa and, of course, rolling this out into their respective markets. So we're quite proud to be a champion in this space, but at the same time, we're quite proud that we will be using our experience to then inform how we can improve and innovate in other markets. We'll be rolling out returnable bottles in a bulk.
Oh, another proud feather in South Africa's cap. We seem to have a few of those to be very proud of at the moment. Now, in terms of technology, these things for a consumer might look very easy to execute at face value or surface level. But underneath that, there must be a significant capital investment. How much is Heineken Beverages, the brewer of Heineken, investing in the technology for this?
The technology for this, as you can imagine, I mean, it involves, firstly, there is a massive reverse logistics that you need to put in place. Getting the bottles from the trade back to the brewery, the bottles being loaded for cleaning, inspection, making sure that they're of good quality to then go back into the filling line. So technology like this for us has costed us in the range of 2.3 billion. And it's an investment we do believe will yield good returns for the business, customers, our consumers, but more importantly, for the well-being of our environment in South Africa.
Wow, that's a significant investment. And that's just in one component of the business. How is Heineken leveraging and investing in relevant innovation and disruptive technologies more broadly for sustainability? Do you have any other environmentally savvy brewery or product features that you can talk about?
So we are in the process. I mean, as Sedibeng Brewery, we've been investing in the expansion of that brewery. Now that we've also added into the portfolio the legacy distill production facilities, including the cider and sprints, there's a lot of assessments going on in terms of expanding our solar. So we're looking at expanding our solar plants in Sedibeng, including the cider and sprints, but also introducing biomass. We are also looking at adding into our existing water treatment facilities. So really the next few years we'll be investing a lot in terms of making sure that our breweries, our production facilities, both in wine, spirits, and cider, we are as sustainable as possible. Then, of course, in the next few years, we hope to then build a greenfield brewery that for us, we hope that from the onset, the brewery will be as environmentally sustainable as possible, both from a carbon footprint, water usage, and also from an energy usage.
That's very exciting because, currently, businesses many have to retrofit existing plant and equipment to achieve these goals. If you can build something greenfield from first principles, then you can really design something that becomes a flagship on how to do this. But what does all of this effort and commitment and investment say about Heineken's commitment to South Africa as a global business? Because I know there's been a lot written recently about the recent write-down, but clearly, the global business environment is not firing on all cylinders. South Africa, we know, has its challenges, but Heineken seems absolutely committed.
We're very much committed to growing in this continent to South Africa being the base. If I may just take a few years back, when we made the commitment to merge with Distill or to acquire Distill, it was during a very difficult financial period. We just came out of COVID. The industry was nowhere near recovery, and we forged ahead with this transaction. And what does that tell you? It tells you that for Heineken, we are committed to growing with South Africa. We're committed to the economic recovery of this country and being part of that story. And so when you read into our public interest commitment, you would see that in addition to supplier development or supporting our own suppliers, we've made a commitment for a fund which is dedicated to localization and growth. And that fund is meant to then support businesses outside of our value chain. And through that fund, we hope to then partner with like-minded corporates to partner with government, to partner with private equity firms, and then look at industries and sectors of economy that we can support for growth, to generate employment, but also to generate confidence with the investor community that things in South Africa at a point in time were not great, but actually now we are recovering as an economy, and we want to be part of that recovery story.
Well, that is a hugely encouraging message at this particular time, following on from that budget, which I think all the economists I've been chatting to were very pleasantly surprised by. Yes, there was the GFECRA kind of once-off, but that has lowered our long-term debt to GDP projections. And ultimately, there does seem to be a firm commitment for fiscal prudence and that economic reform agenda. We see it in energy, opening up to the private sector. We see third-party access for rail that's going to go ahead in the next few months in South Africa, Transnet at Durban Pier 2. All of these things underneath the surface indicate that, there is a much more positive picture emerging in South Africa. Green shoots, if I can borrow from some of the green analogy that we've been talking about. And just one more question. I've been reading up about Heineken Green Zones, which sounds very interesting as someone who likes to get out and have a razzle every now and again. Can you tell us a little bit more about Heineken Green Zones?
So we are very excited with the green zones because these are zones that are in communities. So we have committed to building 5 of these green zones, so starting with 5. But in the month of March, we're going to be launching 3, 2 in Johannesburg, Orange Palm, Lowly, Philippine, Cape Town. What do these communities have in common? High population density, very limited green spaces within their neighborhoods, and more importantly, high levels of unemployment, very limited recreational facilities. So through the green zones, we hope to create a space where the community can have spaces for socializing, recreational spaces that will be safe for people to then connect, but more importantly for different members of the community, including children, to then be able to make use of those spaces. So spaces that we hope can inspire the communities, but also bring in an element of tranquility in those communities.
Yeah, it's so important to give communities dignity back. I mean, much of what we focus on tends to be a numbers game, but these are the softer but equally important issues in providing green spaces for communities and children to go out and kick a football and maybe not go down a path that could see them in drugs or in prison or doing crime and that kind of thing. Millicent Maroga, thank you very much. Corporate Affairs Director for Heineken Beverages. It certainly seems that Heineken is committed to brewing a better world through its sustainability targets. Great pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for for affording us this opportunity. As Heineken, we cannot brew a better society on our own. So it really boils down to our partners, to communities, and a massive word of appreciation to everyone, our customers, our consumers, for really being part of this journey. We'll look forward to succeeding with them through the launch of the backpack, the returnable bottle, and we do hope that as part of our shared value proposition, they will also benefit in our journey of making sure that we are sustainable in a manner in which we produce, package, market, and ultimately retain our product.
Oh, I can certainly toast that. Millicent Maroga, Corporate Affairs Director for Heineken here on Business Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more interviews from the leaders in business here on businesstech.co.za.